Today I wanted to give some notes on this project and some things to fix. So let's start with the dimensions. Here, do you see how this says 2 feet? Well, that is not the form that we want our dimensions to be. Only inches can just be single like this. Everything else needs a foot and the inches. So to change that, we can go to our dimensions style. So I'm going up here on the tab. I'm going to dim style. You can also just type dim style. And I was using standard, so I'm going to modify that. And then I'm going to go to primary units. And here it says 0 suppression. So when you have 0 inches, it wants to suppress it. So I'm going to unclick that so I'll get the 0 inches. We'll close to see the change and see it changes there. Now I have 2 feet 0 inches. So that's what we want. And then I also want to show showing a degree here, 45 degree typical. So I am going to dimension angle, and I'll do these two, and I'll pull it out. And now it says 45 degrees, and I want to add typical in there to show that all of these are 45 degrees. So I can double click on it. Well, that's fun. And bring my cursor to the end and write TYP, and then click out of it, and it changes it. I can also go click on it, type MO, and then scroll down to text. Primary units, suffix or prefix. So you could add a prefix here. I'll do PRE so you can see. And it adds it to the front of the dimension. And you can also do a suffix, which puts something at the end, and do TYP. And it puts there. Now, do you notice if you scroll in how there's no space in between them? So if we go back to properties and put a space before the TYP, it will add a space there. So that's how you change your dimensions around. So say you have dimensioned this and you come back to it later and you realize that you are unhappy with the placement of the objects within your page and you want to move those around. Now, if you just go into model space, MS, enter, and use your wheel, your third button, and pan around, and then go back to paper space, your dimensions have not moved with you, and that's very disappointing. So we're going to Control Z. We're back in model space. If I type P, enter for pan, my cursor changes to a hand, and I can click with my left mouse button and move my objects, and then right click to enter, and you can press exit. And do you notice how on the right our dimensions moved along with it and they stay nice, and on the left they didn't move along with it? What's happened, and I just made a mistake there. You see how I changed my scale? So I'm going to Control Z. I haven't left model space, so I should go ahead and type PS to go back to paper space so I can zoom around. And I also just changed where it was moved. So I'll go back to paper space, P to model space, MS. I will type P for pan. I'll move my guys, and I'll just hit the enter button, And then I will go to Paperspace, PS, so I can move around. And the front elevation dimensions did not move nicely, but the rear elevation dimensions did. So what's happened is that these bad dimensions, they were not correctly associated, so that they didn't change when the object changed. So that is a tricky part with being associated and not associated. So we can see if I click over here and I look at the properties for that guy, it says it's associative. If I click on this guy and go to properties, it says it's associative is partial. And that's a problem when you move. So I would need to do these dimensions again and be careful that they are associated. So what happens is when I was doing this, I might have connected to the dimension instead of to the object. And you can always, again, check by going to properties. So I would need to do these dimensions again. So it pays to be careful when you're working. So I'm going to Control Z to go back to my nice placement. And I'm still in model space, so I'll Control Z again. PS for Paperspace. And then I want to move on to text. So do you see how this text is nice and it has space around the bottom, the edge, and the top? What I'm seeing a lot of is that people are giving their dimensions look like this. Sorry, their text looks like this. So it's kind of stuck at the top there. So to avoid that, we can just do a little differently when we create it. I actually did a guideline for these guys. So I'm actually going to draw a line up from there. But I had just done about a 1/16 of an inch away from the edge. I drew a line all the way down. So when I go to do my text this time, I'm going to go from my guideline, and I'm still going to go to the bottom of the other side. But before I type, I'm going to choose my justification as middle. So top, middle, and bottom is for the boxes, where you are in the box. And then left, center, and right is the justification horizontally. So I'm going to choose middle left. And I'm also going to change my text size to be an 1/8 of an inch, because that's what the other ones were. And I'll type director and then click out of it. And so now I'll delete my guideline, and you can see that it's nice like the other ones. So that is how you can align your text nicely, by using a guideline that you later delete, and by setting your justification to be middle. On here, I set my justification to be middle center, because I wanted these titles to be centered. And once I did this first director, you could always copy it down so that you're not making those choices every time. And then you could just edit the text. Just be aware though, sometimes if you don't click just right when you're trying to edit the text, you'll end up going into model space. And of course, because I want to show that to you, it won't do it. I've gone into model space right now. So you want to be very careful. And then when you do it, you can't actually click your text to edit. So if it ever feels like it's fighting you, be careful, you've probably gone into model space. And I want to show you or remind you about the lock, selected viewport. So if I click the lock, I'm still in model space, but now I can't zoom or pan around in model space, which is perfect for once you've set your layout and your scale and you don't want to mess it up. You click the lock and now you can't mess it around. mess it up when you zoom. But can you pan? No. Panning does not work anymore when you're in lock. So we'll enter to exit and we'll go back to Paperspace. And now we can print.